Everybody, welcome to we finally have news edition of the Missing Wolves post-game podcast. Missing Lynx, not Wolves. This is Lynx. Post-game podcast live stream thing. I'm Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage, and Mitch Hansen, live from wherever he's walking his dog. How's it going?
I am live from the streets, but hey, there's never a bad spot to do a podcast. So I appreciate you having me on, and happy to chat about stuff actually happening.
Well, first off, I believe I texted you. I'm either going solo or you can join me. The choice is yours. Yeah. And you probably made the right business decision to kind of like, wrangle me in by joining this. But we actually have Lynx news to talk about. Expansion draft officially confirmed. It will be on April 3rd. That is next Friday already?
Yeah. At 2:30 local time. Or 2:30 Central Time here in Minnesota, which is an odd time, but I'm sure they needed to just fit it into the TV schedule wherever they could at this point.
Yeah, what's normally on ESPN at 2:30? Is that's like before the old PTI around the Horn days? So
yeah, I think it's Sports Center at that time, if I'm not mistaken.
That makes sense. I was initially a little weirded out by that too, of just like what is happening in the evening that we can't do this. But as Larry says, oh snap, expansion draft is next Friday. I mean, we can officially start speculating on what this season is going to be like, right, Mitch?
Yeah, no, it's a good time to finally put the off season that nothing happened behind us and start actually thinking about 2026. And now we at least know. I apologize if the audio is bad with the wind, but it's windy out today. But I just with the actual details out, we can actually start thinking about, okay, what does this look like? What does this look like for the expansion teams? What does it look like for the Lynx? Which is exciting. I mean, it's going to come, as we've mentioned before, it's going to come fast and furious here over the next couple of weeks, and this is just the first step. So I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, I'm also looking forward to it. Mitch is actually out walking his dog right now. Again, he made the executive decision of we can't let Andrew do this by himself. It would be potentially a disaster.
I would rather do it on a walk than to just not do it at all. No,
exactly. That's true. That's probably the nicer way of putting it. But yeah, I had kind of heard rumblings that it was going to be April 6th. I think doing it April 3rd kind of makes sense. That means they can probably start fluidly on April 6th, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it does make sense to just do it. I think initially they gave that first to sixth window just because it was all depending on the Board of Governors vote and the players vote. And I think that they just didn't know how fast that was going to go. But I mean, I like that it's going to be on the 3rd because then you at least have a couple days to prepare of what your team looks like, or what you think your team might look like. And then you can attack free agency that way.
And I mean, we should start getting into the rules of it. Expansion draft is just going to be 2 rounds. Mitch, I'm going to mute you while you're not talking, just so you know.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, definitely continue talking, but he is muted now, so I have the floor. Anyways, there's only going to be 2 rounds to the expansion draft. It's not going to be like the 2 new teams are going to be building out their entire roster from doing this. I think the other thing that was at least surprising to me is they really did kind of just go, I guess not like conservatively with it, but like you can protect 5 players that were on your 2025 roster. Doesn't mean they're going to play for you. Just means that you kind of protect whatever rights they have. If you can supermax, if you can give them like a different kind of home discount, quote unquote. And for Portland and Toronto, if they draft somebody with that first pick, they each get one unrestricted free agent that they can draft. Really, all they're doing is drafting their negotiation rights. It doesn't sound like that particular player would have to play in the new market. Is that kind of how it sounds to you too, Mitch? Mitch has left the stream, so I am going to continue talking until he comes back in. But that's kind of the gist of what I got is you're not going to be forcing players to play in a city that they don't want to, which kind of makes me wonder, like, not like what's the point, but like kind of what's the point, if that makes sense. I mean, if you're drafting a player's rights, I mean, presumably the only people you would draft are people that you could supermax. So like the star players. But what are the odds that like a star player is going to be like not protected by their team? But Mitch is back now.
I'm sorry.
Mitch, no, you're fine. Is that your understanding that if they were to draft an unprotected free agent, they're not getting like their clear-cut right? They're just getting kind of like the right to negotiate as if they were the team that had them in 2025.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, and I guess I mean that makes sense with it being that way because that's really the only way you can do it with how many free agents there are right now. And so I think that from my understanding that's correct too. I would mention this before that when I dropped off the call all of a sudden, but I was a little bit, I guess you could say, surprised about the 5-player protection. I thought it was going to be 6 like it was last year. But I mean, it is another team too. So that might play a factor, but back to your point or your question. That's my understanding too, is basically they get the rights now to talk to them and to negotiate with them. Which makes sense. I mean, I think that's the right call.
Which I just think it's weird because, like, let's say Toronto goes, Bridget Carleton, that is our gal. We want her on this team. She is going to be the face of our franchise. Starting off, expansion draft, stamp it, Bridget Carleton. I mean, Bridget Carleton could still kind of be like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to go play for the Liberty or go back to the Lynx, right?
Yeah, she definitely can. And that is the weird thing about this expansion draft specifically is you could draft, let's say you draft, a full roster. Well, you could maybe even just sign half the roster and you could still go out in free agency. You can go through the traditional draft, and that's not something we've seen before. So this is kind of uncharted territory. But that's the case with the entire offseason. It's kind of a, kind of a one-off thing or kind of an anomaly compared to what we've seen in the past.
Which, I mean, it kind of had to be. I kind of assumed they would just say, hey, the 2 players that get drafted to the new teams, you guys are just going to get a max, bite the bullet. Like, sorry, it sucks, but, greater's whole than the sum of its pieces or whatever it is. That there's an expression there somewhere. But like, I kind of agree with Larry, who brings up in the chat. I'm assuming this means there are lots of talks going on behind the scenes and making sure the players are willing to go. That at no point in these negotiations have tampering or tampering periods been brought up. So I kind of assume this offseason they're just kind of throwing that out. What do you think, Mitch?
And I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think they'll have a good understanding of who will be obviously available, but who would be willing to sign to. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff like you talked about that takes place, whether it's trades, whether it's free agency, whatever. It happens beyond the schedules that the league sets, which they try and monitor as best they can. But my understanding is, they'll have an idea of, who's willing to sign, first and foremost. And obviously there's going to be more money to give to them than what, we had last year. But, at the same token, if they don't sign, it's not the end of the world. I mean, like I said earlier, they have free agency. They have, the traditional draft that they can go to. So, I mean, I think that these teams will take a chance on a couple players, hoping that they come. Maybe they don't. But I think that ultimately they can still fill out a talented roster.
I mean, King of B adds no one ever tampers. Okay. Abby Link says the timeline of free agency was so, just up in the air that like, I'm sure no one's going to get a slap on the wrist for tampering. That's kind of my assumption. Like there are rumors out there aplenty of who's going where and who's I'd say most of the rumors I hear are like who's re-signing with their teams, which makes sense that like, technically the league year didn't end until like a month and a half ago because they kept extending it. That like it's fair game to talk to your own players. So I'm sure a lot of these players that are going to stay with the Lynx or stay with their teams probably have things pretty well figured out. But I think if anything, these rules help the Lynx a lot more than anywhere else. I think it was Abby who also brought up that like Washington and Connecticut, teams that have a ton of players on rookie contracts, like it's going to suck for them. The Lynx have just Ola.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there that, I do think that, for Minnesota, I don't know if it'll impact them as much. To your point with the rookie contracts and those younger players, those teams want to keep those players intact. They want to keep that young group or that young, maybe it's one or two players intact. And I mean, you if you want those young talents that maybe you drafted last year, you got to protect them now. And then if you're protecting, X player, then you got to make a decision on Y player. And that's going to trickle down. And that's a tough spot to be in. But I agree that I think Minnesota's in an okay spot and they'll be all right.
Want to ask you a couple joke questions before we get into the actual Lynx side. And we are going to go on an ad break before the actual Lynx side. But what coin do they flip? I'm always fascinated by this. Is it just a good old bald eagle quarter? Is it like the Connecticut State quarter? Is it a dime? Do they do a dime, a nickel? Like what coin are we flipping here? It better not just be generic like WNBA logo and like teams on the other side. On it. Kathy's face in the WNBA logo. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, I could see that.
The New York skyline on one, and then on the flip side, it's just Kathy's face. Abby Lynx. Abby says maybe a silver dollar. I hear there is some new Republican president coinage coming out. Maybe that would be even worse. King of V adds even worse, but a digital one. I mean, that would be pretty funny if it's just
or something.
If it's just like the random wheel for those two teams. Another thing I've been curious about that now that I have you here, Larry says Kathy stable coin incoming. Why not? Everyone's involved in the grift now. We might as well all start getting a stable coin. But Dorka Juhász, I do want to get your thoughts on that because I have heard literally nothing about if she's coming back, if she's just doing Europe, if like nothing at all. Have you heard anything on Dorka and if she's going to be one of these players that they have to think about protecting even?
I don't think that they really have to. I don't think they will protect her, and I don't think that they really have to worry about, if she's going to get selected. I don't think she would get selected just for the fact that teams also don't really know what she's planning on doing. I mean, the Lynx probably have a good idea, but you don't want to, select a player and then she doesn't come back, or she doesn't come over. So I think if I had to guess about Dorka Juhász, I think she's in 26 with the Lynx, but I don't know. I don't think that either of the two expansion teams.
Mitch, as Abby says, you sound like a robot. I'm assuming that's because we've been talking too much about stablecoin and the powers to be that are spying on all of us have hacked your phone. But I fully agree with you. Like, I honestly think at this point, you don't protect Dorka, as weird as that is to say, as she was such a big piece of this team 2 years ago. Well, 2.5 years ago. It's summers. But like it just, I also think like how that went down last season, where it did seem to genuinely take Cheryl by surprise that Dorka wasn't going to be here. Like, I think you probably, if she gets selected, it is what it is at this point. Mitch has left again. He will be rejoining back in. I mean, let's run a quick ad break here. When we come back, I do want to at least throw out the 5 people I think they would protect, and we can certainly argue about it in the chat. If Mitch is back from the dead or wherever he went, we'll get his 5 as well, but we'll run ads. Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Lynx podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back with another ad read. This time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. All right, we're back with it here. I think it's gonna. I'll be honest. I think my 5 protected players are probably a little more like controversial than maybe what other people have. I for sure have Fee. Nate, nice to see you in the chat here. He heard the sponsor and he was just like, here we are. But I think Fee is an obvious protection. I think you look at Fee, she's at the Gophers game Friday and Sunday. She's, I mean, kind of the face of the franchise. Her and Cheryl have a great relationship. Like, I think that's like a Fee's back. I think K-Mac you have to protect. You look at K-Mac, she's been in town. She's posting a lot of Lynx stuff on Instagram today. Like, I would be stunned if K-Mac is playing anywhere outside of the Lynx. I also think you protect Lan. I'm seeing quite a few people so far agreeing with me. Fee, Lan, K-Mac, says Nate. McKenney says Fee, Lan, K-Mac in her top 4. I think Lan just is too important to what they've built, and she fits so well with what Cheryl's currently running that you can't just like blow that up. Like, Lan is the co-defensive player of the year. If she wants to come back here, you're bringing Lan back here. This is where I probably get a little controversial because Courtney Williams, depending on the day and who you're asking in the fan base, that's who I'd protect. I think Court is back. I think her relationship with Cheryl is really strong. I think Cheryl trusts her. And with Cheryl, the one thing we've kind of seen is that she needs a point guard that she can trust and a point guard that can do everything. Every play has to start with a point guard running a pick and roll with somebody. Yes. Does Courtney kind of call her own number maybe a little too often? Does she have some main character syndrome that Wolves people are learning with Bones Highland? Like, certainly. But when you're looking across like the landscape of the WNBA, like, how many better point guards are there than Court? Like Sabrina, Skylar, and that might be the list. I mean, Young, maybe. I mean, Paige and Caitlin, but they're obviously not going to get signed here. So, like, I look at Courtney and it's like, if she wants to come back here, like, you bring her back, a no-brainer. This is probably where I get the most, like, controversial, though, is I would protect Ola with that 5th spot. I wouldn't protect Nay. I wouldn't protect BC. I wouldn't protect T. In the Twitter Links group, they're talking about Masha a lot today. Wouldn't protect Masha. I also wouldn't protect Dorka, as we kind of talked about earlier. I would go Ola. I think they drafted Ola and had her in the building every single day last year. I think they put a lot of time into developing her, and she's still just 20. I mean, with how athletic she is and how fast she's catching on, like I would do Ola Kosu. Like that would be my fifth. So it'd be starters minus BC, and then Ola would be my 5 that I would protect. Like I do think there is a case for Dejanay. I just don't know if she's going to resign here. Like she wasn't here necessarily long enough for me to get like a great sense of, what the relationships were like behind the scenes. I think BC, people could argue to core, but at the same time, it's like BC, where's her head at? Like, I certainly think she's better than the 5th starter on a team. And with the Lynx, she's probably just going to be the 5th starter on this team. Like, does she want to go someplace where she can have a little bit more like bandwidth, wingspan, ability? I mean, every year she goes overseas and is like a primary option, plays really well, then comes back to the Lynx and it's like spot up threes, good defense. And I don't think it's a BC fault. I think it's literally just like we have so many other options. I think there's an argument to protect her. She had one of her best seasons as a pro last season. I would be surprised if the one unrestricted free agent that Portland or Toronto can take would be Natisha Heidemann. I just think that would be like, if they want to give Natisha Heidemann a max contract to start their organization, like all power to them. Like that's fine. And also, like, if you protect Courtney and Courtney resigns, you might just get T back here, even if they do select her, because stud buds, right? I mean, Masha, I think, is an interesting one. Like I do think Masha, you could make a case for, just because she is a little bit younger. She is a little bit more like, you could kind of fit her in on any team, but she's also not under contract. So if it's Masha as your like one unrestricted free agent that you're drafting, if you're Toronto or Portland, like, I don't know how you sell that to your fan base when you're like passing up Tosh Cloud and taking Masha. So I do think there are players that are like a little not good enough, because that sounds like super dismissive, but like they're not at that level where you would want to make them your only pick to have those exclusive kind of, contract rights. So again, my thoughts would be Fee, K-Mac. I'm kind of moving about my life as they're already re-signed. I'm sure at some point in the near future, maybe the day after the draft, we'll find that out. And then I would do Lan, Court, and then finally Ola, just because, again, Ola does seem like the person where if you're taking that second, if you're Portland and you're looking at like, who can we take with that second, could be under contract type of spot, like a 20-year-old Russian that's hyper athletic seems like a perfect spot for that. So I would just be kind of afraid to lose her. As Abby says, I also really want to see funny Supermax contracts. There was a large part of me that hoped that the WNBA salary cap would just go from like 1.4 million to like 23 million this year. So we just all of a sudden have to like mentally cope with like BC being a $2.5 million player somewhere. Not saying she doesn't deserve to make her money, but just like, that would just be such a like sticker shock that I think it would be fun to deal with that. Catching up on chat a little bit. Abby also mentions ultimately you can kind of override the unrestricted free agent pick anyway. Agree. Trucker says Fee, Lan, not Trucker, Truckin says Fee, Lan, Courtney, K-Mac, Nay is to keep. Like, I think that's a perfectly, again, like, I'm not gonna be too angry about if they were to decide to keep like if they were decided to keep those 5 or protect those 5. I just don't know enough about Nay's situation. I think somebody else in the chat, I'm trying to scroll down here, but like I do think there's like a lot of verbal commitments already between players and teams. Again, the league, last year's league contract didn't officially end until like middle of January, I want to say, because they kept putting extensions out. Like that means that like Cheryl can legally call Fee every single day and ask if she wants to resign. Like I would kind of assume that a lot of these players that get protected are already like close to pen to paper. I do think this does kind of mess up just the, like, let's say Brianna Stewart wants to leave New York, which I'm not reporting. I have not heard that at all, but let's say Stewie is like, F this New York thing. I want a ring. I want to go play somewhere else. If New York were to like not core Stewie and then Toronto were to take Stewie, Toronto would have the Supermax rights for Stewie, which you can only have one Supermax on a team. And the only place that could give Stewie a Supermax would be Toronto. So I do think someone that gets picked will be surprising. Like, I don't know who it'll be. I mean, Truckin brings up the Fever and Liberty being in cap situations. Like maybe the Fever don't protect Kelsey Mitchell and Kelsey Mitchell gets picked by Portland so that they can have the opportunity to pay her more than any other team can. And I think it's like, I want to say it's like 1.4 million to like 1.1 or 900,000. Like it's not like NBA or like NFL Supermax where it's like an unfathomable amount of money, but like an extra $400,000. Like I think a lot of players are going to be factoring that in. So I do think that first pick in the draft is going to be someone that you don't expect. Like if Kelsey Plum hasn't committed to the Sparks, is she out there? Is Portland a team that would swing like that? Toronto, I think, would certainly do that. I think especially if it's a Liberty player that has some ties, that they might do that. I do think it'll be really kind of fascinating to see. McKinney adds, when and how do we find out who is protected? I would assume that there is currently a death pact in the WNBA that if anyone leaks who is protected, they will be assassinated tomorrow. I'm not a public supporter of assassinations or anything like that, but I would assume that if any of those lists of 5s got made public, even if it's by an expansion team that leaked it, that like they would rue the day forever. Just because that's kind of how it was with the Valkyries, where nothing really got released. I do think the Lynx, I mean, I report on the Lynx. You guys are all Lynx fans. Like, you know how Cheryl is. There's not a whole lot of leaks out of that building. I would assume we never find out. I think players that leave in free agency, like if Shep gets signed, again, I'm kind of under the impression that like expansion draft is the 3rd, free agency will be the 6th. So like if Shep gets signed 3 days later, Shep probably wasn't protected. If like Court, Fee, K-Mac, Lan all sign the second the free agency opens, I think you can assume they all got protected. I do think if Ola doesn't get picked, like you could probably assume that she got protected as well. Like, again, I know there's only going to be 2 rounds, but Ola is like a perfect expansion draft type of player. Just young, super athletic, throw it out there. Abby says, I wonder how much free agent movement will retroactively clearing be from unrivaled teams or just them hanging out in Miami. A lot. I think there will be a lot. Hasn't really happened in recent years, but like for a while, the like Team USA NBA stuff was like a direct link to guys teaming up. I think some of that's a little overblown, but Unrivaled, it's like you have the top 40 players in the league all in the same place at the same time for like a month and a half on end. I think a lot of teaming up will be we'll look back and we'll be like, oh, they were both on the laces. That kind of makes sense. I know there's a lot of like Skylar Diggins should come to the Lynx because of the Owl connection. I mean, I would be surprised if Skylar left Seattle. It sounds like everything I've heard is like Seattle people feel like they can get her back, but at the same time, like none of us know. Like that's the craziest part about this is I have best guesses. I have tea leaves that I've been reading, but like no one really knows anything. Abby adds Ola feels like someone you could have a Veronica Burton moment with. Like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm hinting at is it might not be next season, but like 22-year-old Ola with 4 years in the WNBA just grinding. I think that's going to be a really impressive thing. Truck, and I know you showed up a little late. Can expansion teams only take one player per team of the unprotected players? So yes, Portland will be able to take one unprotected player. Toronto will be able to take one unprotected player. I also understand that once a player has been taken from your team, so like if they take BC from the Lynx, no other players can be taken from the Lynx. And we started off on the top of this. The weird thing with like this protection rule is that like it doesn't guarantee they're going to sign with you. It sounds like if you take the unprotected player, you get their rights, so you can re-sign them to whatever incremental increase they would have gotten if they were on your team last year, right? So I used like Stewie as an example, or Diggins, I guess, would qualify, or Kelsey Plum, or any of the players that are like in line where they could make a supermax contract. It would make sense for Portland to take a swing, Toronto to take a swing if they feel like they have a good chance of signing that player, because then they can offer them a couple $100,000 more than any other team. But again, it's going to be weird. Like it's just going to be weird. I think there is going to be someone that gets picked that it's going to be kind of shocking. And then I do think that first day of free agency, when 70% of the free agents around the league are just immediately signed, we'll probably figure out the protection class. Druggan also adds 2027 WNBA draft class is stacked. Same with 2028. I mean, that's kind of the if you wanted to take a bunch of project players and you're Portland, like you're going to get whoever doesn't get the first pick in the expansion draft will get the first pick out of the lottery ahead of the other team. So like if you're Portland, that's what, the 5th or 6th pick. I always forget when expansion ends, but like you could get like Lauren Betts this year with the 5th pick. Like I do think that's a little undersold, and like 2028, if you're towards the bottom of the league, like there's going to be a ton of good players in there as well. Sarah Strong, as you mentioned, Juju will be eligible as well. Who knows what she's going to do next season when she's fully healthy. Like these expansion teams, it might be rough for them in 2027, but I mean, 2028, they're going to be solid. 2026, this year, they're going to be solid. Like the draft class coming into the league is kind of perfect for the expansion as well as like the roster expansion, because I do think there's going to be really good players. I am going to call the live here pretty quick here, unless people have anything else they want to talk about or ask about. Abby mentions here Lauren Betts' range and mocks has been so up and down. 100%. Honestly, I think because Kiki Rice has been so awesome, people are kind of forgetting that Lauren Betts is just like a dominant force. But it'll be interesting. I will go on record. Our fam, I think, is going to go to Dallas. I think that leaves AZ to come to the Lynx. That's what I do. You bring back Court, you bring back K-Mac, have AZ come off as the Dejanay role from last season. Maybe you have AZ start in that 5th starter spot and you just, bridge her minutes with T, and maybe if like BC or Dejanay comes back, you do something there. But I think AZ being the long-term K-Mac replacement just makes way too much sense for this team. And I think when you're just looking at Dallas, and if you separate the Paige and AZ relationship, like I think a lot of people look at Paige and go, she's going to want AZ. I think you can just, if you separate that, pairing Paige with Awa Pham is just not fair for the league. Like a 6 foot, the most recent measurements I saw is that she's actually being listed at 6'6" now. You have a 6'6" center that's hyper athletic and can shoot threes, and you pair her with Paige on the pick and roll, pick and fades. Like if Dallas doesn't take her, I think the Lynx officially would take Awa Pham and just figure it out. Like I think you just like she's the kind of clear cut best prospect. You also factor in she's 19, like the draft class coming up, as Truckin has mentioned, in 2027 and 2028. Like, even if the Wings are bad next season, you get, let's say you take Awa Pham, they're still bad, and then you like luck into AZ and you have Paige, AZ, and Pham all in their early 20s. Like, that just doesn't seem fair. That's what I do. Again, if Dallas doesn't do that, I think Cheryl probably takes Pham, but right now I'm on the FUD train. Is that what we're calling it? The FUD train? I don't know. We got smarter people than me come up with nicknames. Kingo, will close with yours here. With the Lynx try to get another bigger center next to Lan? I mean, they could. I do think there is a reality where Fee can play more small forward. I wrote about it a little bit last year, of just like when Masha was doing really well, or Shep had her triple double, of just like there is a world where Fee could play small forward, and you could do Court, K-Mac, Fee, Lan, and then bring in a center. Like, Fee is athletic enough. She's a good enough ball handler. She's a 50, 40, 90 shooter. Like, I do think there is that potential out there. Does it happen? I'm not too sure. I think it's a lot harder to adjust, for people's way of playing to bring in like a big positional shift than it is to just kind of keep the status quo and just maybe get a little bit better at the small forward. But I mean, also, Masha's having a heck of a season over in Russia right now. Maybe Masha comes back next year and she's 15% better, and that solves a lot of problems. I'd be kind of surprised if Jess is back here next year, just because I think someone's going to pay her. But maybe Jess comes back on a 1-year deal and looks to cash out in 2027 when the salary cap goes up from like 7 to 10 or whatever it does. I think that certainly could that certainly could be the answer, is you just have Jess slide into the starting role for BC, move Lan and Fee down a position where Lan's playing her more natural power forward position, Fee's at the 3, and you just have this monster lineup that can kind of still run and get out there with pace, but also kind of be able to just offensively, I don't know what you do really. Like, it wouldn't be like a spread lineup because Jess still doesn't shoot a ton of threes, but like Jess as your like hub playmaker and then just 4 potential all-star caliber players around her, like that's probably more of like a super team roster than I think people would be willing to admit. Truckin' just dream free agents. I'm boring. So I think dream free agents would be trying to keep this team together the best they can. So like my dream free agent would be like Dejanay. Get Dejanay in, plug her in as the starter, bring back Court and T. That's your backcourt. You draft AZ, bring in Masha, have her be the primary backup center, and your top 8 in order of positions are Court, K-Mac, Dejanay, Fee, Lan, and then your 3 off the bench are AZ, T, and Masha. Like that's kind of my dream roster for next season, I guess I'd say. Obviously, if they're able to swing it, like if they could get like a Stewie, again, I don't know if she's going back to New York. I don't know what her plan is, but like Unfortunately, you're probably saying goodbye to Lan, but also like Stewie played next to JJ last year. So let's say we live in this hypothetical world where Cheryl's able to go after Stewie, get Stewie to sign here. They keep everything together. And then you have Court, K-Mac, Fee, Lan, and Stewie as your starting five. Chalk, that's probably a banner if that's their starting five. So that's probably more unlikely, but like if we're dreaming big, that's probably my big dream. But my more realistic dream is to just kind of have there's going to be so much turnover in this league. Let's just keep the band together for if Mosh is in. That again, I know that's not the most exciting thing. I know the Kelsey Plum stands are out there saying replace Court with Plum. There's some stands of Skylar Diggins out there saying we need Skylar. I just think there's going to be so much kind of chaos that if you can start the season with that continuity of all of these people are already bought in, power of friendship, they all genuinely get along, and you just hit the ground running. I mean, we see it every year. Like getting to the playoffs is important. And if you can get there as the one season and just be healthy, keyword healthy, meaning Dejanay doesn't blow her shoulder and foot out. Fee doesn't blow out both of her ankles. Lan isn't dealing with whatever Lan was dealing with. And you can rest those players a little bit more as the season goes on. I think that's going to set them up awesome. But this went 20 minutes longer than I thought it would. You guys are always a delight to talk to. So that's why we always go late on this. If you did come into this late, though, it does get posted up on YouTube and X as a live stream, lives on forever. I'm also going to post this over on all of the, Spotify, Apple, all those places at 6 p.m. tonight, just because, topical, right? Like if you're wanting more information on it, hopefully this flushed it out a little bit. Larry, I'm just going to also add your comments in here. I also want refs that aren't from the G League or the Big Ten. The amount of times I have seen the same ref that was officiating a Lynx game at a Gophers game this season has been irritating. So also, yes, we need professional referees that their only job is WNBA games. I concur. But again, thank you everyone for tuning in. Appreciate all of you. And I will be back for any of the Wolves fans in the chat. I will be back after the Houston game tonight, doing another live stream after that. And as Lynx news comes out, I'll continue to do these. But appreciate y'all.